Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to cover the basic part of this chapter, market demand. So this video is quite short. In this video, all we are going to do is to aggregate individual demand curves to derive the market demand curves. And you can imagine that later on, we will use the market demand curves to find the equilibrium price and the equilibrium total quantity, well, for the market. And also we can use that to derive the individual equilibrium quantity. So the whole idea of deriving the market demand curve is to summing up the individual demand curves horizontally. And here, summing them up horizontally is important. If we add them up vertically, the relationship we obtain is going to be totally meaningless. And also, part of the reason that I'm covering this part of the textbook is that we are going to apply the same idea when we were to derive the market supply curve later on. And you can imagine we are going to derive first the supply curve for individual firms. And based on the different market structure, there might be only a single firm in the market and there might be many firms in the market. By adding up the individual supply curve of the firms, we will be able to derive the market supply curves later on. And I'm going to go over two examples in deriving the market demand curves. The first is very straightforward. All the individuals are the same. So if there are 10 identical individuals in the market, and we have, well, based on the utility maximization problem that we have solved, we have derived the demand curve for every individual. So here we are kind of changing the notation a little bit. So previously we have good X and the price of good X Px. And here, let's say we are focusing on the good X, and because we are looking at deriving the demand curves, so instead of Px, we just put P for price, and implicitly it is the price for the good X that we are looking at. And we use Qd to refer to the quantity demanded, or the quantity of the good X in the optimal consumption bundle that we solve for the utility maximization problem. So here we are using Qd and P, which is the notation we use in Econ 3. So let's say the individual demand curve is described by this relationship. So Qd equals to 10 minus P. And here I emphasized that this relationship is only valid for the price that is between $0 to $10, right? So if the price is negative, well, that might happen in reality, but it's not it's not generally the interesting case. And the price, if the price is larger than $10, then individuals will basically demand or consume 0 units of the good, rather than consume negative units of the good, right? So this relationship only holds for the price within the range of 0 to 10. Given this setup, the market demand curve is, because the 10 individuals are identical, they are the same, we can imagine that if, say, the price is $5, then every individual will consume 5 units of the good. And the total amount of good that is consumed in the market is simply 10 times 5. So therefore, the market demand curve is simply 10 times the individual quantity demanded, which is Qd. So the capital Qd refers to the market demand. And by multiplying the individual demand by 10, the market demand is 100 minus 10 times P. And here, the range does not change. So similarly, the price cannot be negative. And if the price is larger than $10, well, every individual will just consume 0 units. The total quantity demanded in the market will also be 0 units. So there won't be negative quantities consumed by either the individual or the entire market. So when the individuals are identical, and here by identical, it is really saying that all the individuals have the same preferences, right? So as we are interested in in the economic side of the individuals. And in the next example, we are going to have individuals that have different preferences. In this example, we are looking at two different individuals. And again, by different, we mean that they have different preferences. So let's say we have done all the utility maximization problem and we have derived the demand curves for the two individuals. And say the demand curves for the first individual is 20 minus 2 times p. And for p, that is between 0 and 10, because neither the price nor the quantity is going to be negative. And for the second individual, the demand curve is 15 minus p for p between 0 and 15. Well, to derive the market demand curves, it is tempting to simply add Q1 to Q2 and say the market demand curve is 35 minus 3 times P. But that is obviously not the end of it, because we have to be careful about the price ranges, especially when they are different, when the individuals consume positive amount of the good. So I've typed it on the screen that the correct market demand curve is, well, are two lines that are connected but have different slopes. And I'm going to draw a graph just in a minute to show you how that is. And I probably should have said here, to be more precise, that the demand is 0 for anywhere that is outside of the range that is specified. To draw the graph, let me again draw the axis first. On the horizontal axis is our quantity demanded, either individual or market. And on the vertical axis is the price. Now for individual 1, well, I figured out the intercept on both of the axes. So for individual 1, the intercept is 20 and 15. Sorry, 20 and 10. And for individual 2, the intercepts are 15 and 15. They have different slopes. So the individual demand curves are going to be straight lines connecting those two intercepts. And the red line is our Q1. And the green line is our Q2. So the idea of adding up the individual demand curves is quite straightforward. So for any price that is above $15, well, neither individual is purchasing any of it, so the market demand is 0. As soon as price goes below $15, individual 1 will start to consume positive amount of the good, while individual 1 is still consuming nothing. So for price that is between $10 to $15, the market demand curve is the same as the individual demand curve of the second person. And just to emphasize it, I will use the same color to draw it again over here. Now let me draw a supplement line that is just a horizontal line representing p equals to 10. Now, as soon as the price goes below 10, we are going to add up the individual demand curves horizontally. So for whatever value, so let's look at this point, for example. And let me just draw this straight line a little longer, and let's look at this point. And this point. So let's just give this a name. Say this is P1. This is Q1. And this is Q2. Now, when price is equal to P1, well, the Q1 is what individual 1 will purchase. Q2 is what individual 2 will purchase. So the total amount of good that the two individuals, which is the entire market, will purchase is going to be Q1 plus Q2. And so where is Q1 plus Q2? It is, well, probably somewhere here. So the market demand for the at P equals to P1 is going to be just adding up those two segments. So where does this lie? Well, it might lie somewhere here, right? So this point is Q1 plus Q2. And well, we can do the same thing for every of those price levels that is below $10. And if we connect all those points, then we are going to get the market demand curve that is a straight line. And that is going to be something like this. Now, what is this point? This intersection point, although I should have drawn the axis longer, and I can do it actually. Oops. I can extend the axis. Right? And put my Q towards here as well. So this intersection, the market demand curve, the intersection, we know that the value of it must be 35, right? Because when price is 0, individual 1 is going to consume 20 units of the good. Individual 2 is going to consume 15 units of the good. So the total amount of good consumed by both of them is going to be 35. So this brown line, and let me erase the supplement curves now. So let me erase those things. Oops. All right, I've erased the irrelevant stuff. So this brown line, I showed you how we derive it. And this brown line is the market demand curve. And this is what is meant by adding up the individual demand curves horizontally. And this is the example for two individuals. If we have more than two individuals, we are going to do the same thing. We just look at different price levels, and we are going to, well, add whatever quantity is demanded for each individual together at each of the price levels and plot the market demand curves again. So this is well, I think this example illustrates the idea, and later on we are going to apply the very same idea when we were to derive the market supply curve.